refer back to this if you guys get lost. So we just watched in the P5 tutorial playlist that's in Module 6, the 2.1 video, 3.1 video, and 4.1 video. So please refer back to those before watching this video. If we go to Open Processing, and then sign in, we should by now have added our stuff to this class. I do not see my sketch. Oh, there it is, the two people. English example. There we go. So I'm going to click my example, and there we go. Cool. So immediately I see I wanted these things to be hearts, so I'm going to force them down the screen a little bit more. But this is my very basic program. Wherever you see the same thing repeated, you can probably put that as a variable. I'm only going to do that for my two hearts. First thing I want to do is move them down. So I want my Y values on the ellipse and the triangle to be further down the screen. Cool. So that's this number. 304 divided by 2, I'm going to do the math real quick and know that's 152. And then 304 divided by 2, I'm going to do 152. Cool. And so I just want to move it down the screen, which means, let's say if I wanted to move it down the screen 50 pixels, what would my new number be?
202.
202, exactly right. I'm adding 50. So I'm going to hit play and look. Great. Triangles work a bit differently. So I need to add 50 to all of those Y values, which is embarrassing. So let's undo that and create a variable to shift it. So I'm going to create a local variable. We'll call it var heart shift. It can be anything I want it to be. And it's going to be equal to 100. And I'm going to shorten this to just call it HS, heart shift. And I'm just going to add it to each of my triangles. Plus HS. Plus HS. And actually, I could just do this heart position because it is all the same Y value. So I'm going to call it heart Y. And I'm going to make it 300. Just over halfway down the screen. Let's make it 250, exactly halfway down the screen. So I'm just going to erase every time I have a Y value here and just write HY. Any questions about what I just did? So all of these numbers, rather than have it do that complicated math every time, I just know that I want my heart Y values to be 250 down the screen. So now HY equals 250, and I can just pop in HY. Boom. So that worked for one of them. What did I do to the other one?
Was your
X.
triangle still there? It looks like it completely disappeared.
It did. I have put it somewhere else. Okay. HY, HY, HY. So the triangle does have different Y values. Right now, because it's the Y value of each point, and if each point were the same thing, it would be a different triangle. So let's undo that and see what I did wrong.
How do you undo?
I'm just Command Z.
Okay.
So
Good to know.
this is Y1, Y1. This is Y2. Okay, that's what's happening. So I have the plus 50 here. So two of them have the same Y value. The other one has the plus 50, and that's what I deleted. So now I'm going to see if I can redo. I cannot, so I need to recreate that variable. Up here, local variable, HY. And I'm going to comment out to let me know what that HY variable is. Where is my comment? There we go. Heart Y position. I need to create variable HY equals 250. So HY, HY, and then HY plus 50. Then HY, Now what happens? There we go. Cool. Now I want it to be just a little bit higher than that, so I'm going to write 200 instead of 250. Cool. Now so that's how you would create a variable to replace and make your program less complicated than it is already. Now I'm just imagining off the top of my head, I have a nice little love scene happening here. I do want this ellipse to match that, so I'm just going to add 50 to its y2, plus 50. Nope.
Can't win.
Plus 25. Actually, it looks like 26. If I want to add half of the ellipse scale value, so
You
for the
might
moment.
add the HY back in.
Yes, thank you. 9 plus 25. There we go. That looks good enough. Cool. So I'm creating a little love scene here. So I think first thing I want to do is animate it a little bit. I want the hearts to beat. So that can be a step one. Ways I think I can do that. I need a heart size variable because I want to change how big the heart is. I want to change that based on time. So I'm sure that there's a way that I can count the actual frame rate of the thing, but I'm going to make it a bit simpler and create some variables for myself to let me understand it better rather than just shove it over to the built-in stuff. I'm going to create a counter. Every time it goes through the draw function, it's going to change, it's going to add 1 to my counter. So the first time 1, second time 2, second time 3. And then I'll bet that there's a mathematical way that I can figure out whether that number is even or odd that is built in. So on odd numbers, I'm going to make it bigger. On smaller numbers, I'm going to make it on odd numbers bigger, even numbers smaller, or vice versa. So let's see if I can do that. First thing, I need to know if there is a way to make odd or even. So I'm going to do even or odd P5. It looks like there's an is-even function. So I'm going to do is-even P5. Code. Doop, doop, doop. Let's just go to the P5 reference. P5. Is even. No, there does not seem to be, which is going to make this harder. Is even JavaScript. So it looks like we need to create our own function, which is very exciting. Cool. Cool. We're going to do something similar, but not quite that. So we're going to create a little switch that changes every time we go through the program. So we're going to call, again, local variable. We're going to call it heartbeat, or HB. So var HB equals false. So in a comment, I'm going to say Boolean variable that beats the heart. So heartbeat, false. And then I need another one for the size of the heart. So var HS. Size of heart, or heart size. Size scale. So equals, right now, my heart size is 56, more or less. I'm just going to call it 50. So HS, and this one's a bit more complicated, isn't it? Let's just change it to a rectangle. That'll solve a lot of problems here. HS equals 50. Cool. So I'm just going to change this to a rectangle. So I'm going to comment this out. Correct. And I'm sure we could figure out how to do it with a triangle in a fairly easy way if you guys want to do that for yours, but it's not something I'm going to do in a live demo in front of the class and waste all your time. So its position is this. 185 divided by 2 is 92, more or less. 92 minus 10, 82. So we'll call it 82 HY. And then its size scale is going to be HS, heart size. HS. Height and width are both going to be the size. Boom. So HS, HY plus 25, and then the X. That's great. So I'm going to delete this line of code. Or before I do that, I'm going to make sure it works. It does. More or less the same thing, but with a rectangle now. Great. Cool beans. So I'm going to delete that triangle. Now I want that to change. So I need to switch this every time. So if a heartbeat, if HB, then do something. So that's saying if HB is true, do something. If HB is false, do something, then else. Do this. So if HB is true, then follow this line of code. If it's not true, then follow this line of code. So let's separate this down through some lines to make it make a bit more sense. Else, boop. Cool, so if it's false, I want the scale to be plus 50. HS equals HS plus 50. Great, so we're adding 50 to it and putting it back in the box. Else, HS equals HS minus 50, or minus 10. So it'll get slightly smaller if it's false, and it'll get much bigger if it's true. Let's see if that works. Oh, so right now that's only going to happen once. There's nothing to change HB to true or false. So we need to change that every time it goes through the draw loop. So if we do 2 lines of instruction in each of these, if HB is true, then do this. So if it's true, we want it to turn to false at the end. HB equals false. If it's false, then we want it to turn to true at the end. HB equals true. So now every time we're going to flip that switch, every time we go through the draw function. We're flipping it on or off every time we cycle through the draw function. And we're either making the heart smaller or bigger every time we go through the draw function, which is once per frame. So, boom. Why didn't that work? HS equals HS minus 10. Cool. I don't know why that didn't work. If HB equals false.
Looks like it did the minus.
Does look like it did the minus. Does not look like it's going back through. Which means that my HB probably isn't changing. So I need to figure out a way to test that. So I know that there's a print line function. Print line P5. Print, cool. So I want to print HB, and I'm hoping that'll print right here, because I want to know whether HB is actually changing. Print HB. And it should, I hope, print right here. So yeah, HB is just staying true. It's never turning false again. So why might that be? HB is not becoming false. HB is true.
Do you have to put else parentheses HB, or you have to put else parentheses HB?
I don't believe so. I think what's happening is that this is always, I think that it's running through, because it's turning false here, I think it is then doing the else function afterwards. That's what I think is happening. So I'm going to, if that is the case, right now it's false, so it must be turning true at some point for it to read true down here. So I think it's just every frame becoming true and then never doing the other thing. So I'm going to delete both of those conditions, and now I think that it should just stay false. Yeah, now it's staying false. So I need to separate that into a different if function. So if that, then do that. Now I'm going to create a second if function. If HB how would I do that? I think I can swap true or false. So I need to swap true or false. I think I can times it times a -1, but I just want to Google that. Swap true, false, Boolean P5.
Double equal sign.
Yeah, they're looking to see if it's false. So you could just do the same thing as if B. And where do they change it? They don't. I'm going to just try that to see if it works.
Could you do a different variable and make that equal true? Like variable HP equal true or not?
Could do. I think I have a. I'm going to try this one way real quick just to see if it works. At the very bottom, I'm just going to times HB times -1 to see if that flips it. I don't actually think that it will, but I'm testing it. Closing that down there. HB equals HB times -1. Nope, didn't work. All right, so I'm not going to use a true-false variable. What I'm going to do is make it 1. And then I'm going to say, instead of if it's true, I'm going to say if HB is greater than 0, else do this. And then at the very bottom, I'm going to times it by -1. So it'll either be -1 or +1. So it's going to be on either side of 0 every frame. Again, I'm sure there's a way I can do this with a Boolean, but I'm not going to waste more class time looking for it. So here at the bottom, I'm going to do HB equals HB times -1. And then now, it's every frame it's going to flip between -1 or +1. And now this should be true or false every given frame. It is still true every frame. It is not changing. Why would that be? I think, actually, maybe it did work before. I think maybe it's just going really fast. So I'm going to try my frame rate, try to reduce my frame rate. Frame rate P5, boop. So it looks like I can do whatever number I put in this frame rate is always going to be how slow it goes across the frame, how many times per second. So I'm just going to do a thing, frame rate up here in my function, frame rate 10. So it's only going to draw, or 2 frames per second. No, it is not flipping. How bizarre. I wonder why that would be. Well, I'm going to debug that later. I want to show one more thing, then I'll debug it and show my solution. So I don't waste class time just trying to figure stuff out. But that happens all the time. The computer does exactly what you tell it to do, and sometimes you tell it to do something not quite what you meant it to do. So I just want to change the colors based on the mouse position of one and based on a counter on the other. So I'm going to create a for loop just because they're crazy complicated. So I want the red value to cycle from 0 to 255. So I'm going to create a new variable up here. And I'm going to call it heart red channel. So var HR equals 0. I'm going to comment it out. Heart red channel. So I have these fills on the left and right heart. So now I'm going to replace those with, I'm going to replace one of them with HR. Cool, so the left heart is going to cycle here in colors. And then the left heart will just be mouse x. Mouse x divided by 2. Because our screen is 500, our value can go 0 to 255, so I'm going to have it by 2, so the value can be anywhere from 0 to 250, which is almost all of the red channels. So, mouse x divided by 2 for the right heart, and then HR here. So already, something should happen. Whoop, mouse x is not defined. It needs to be mouse capital X. Boom. So, oh, and I put it on the wrong fill.
You put on the person.
And there is blood.
Yeah, cool, I did. I'm gonna undo that. Cool. HR, and then down here, right heart, fill 0.
Thanks.
I'm gonna have the same values here. So, mouse X, 173, 204. Cool. And again, the frame rate is affecting it here. So that's why it's not doing it real time. So I'm just going to comment out this frame rate up here. There we go. Now it's more of an even split. Yep.
Can you change the frame rate?
Yes, that's what I just did with this frame rate function. I changed it to just 2 frames per second rather than probably the 60 or 120 that are happening normally. So anyway, now we see a more constant shift. And then to do this HR, to cycle through them, I am going to do 4, yeah, right here. Oh. So I'm going to include this left heart in my for function. So I'm going to do 4 var x equals 0. So I'm creating a new function, calling it x. Then I'm doing the next part, which was the conditional statement. Or if x is less than or equal to 255, 0 to 255 is my channel information, then I want it to do what? X plus plus. So x plus plus is the same as x equals x plus 1. Cool. So everything is going to cycle through 0 to 255 every draw function. Before everything through that is going to get stuck in this loop. So while it's doing that, I want it to do this. I actually want to draw both hearts in there. Cool. So while it's doing that, it's drawing both hearts. One of those hearts is based on the HR value, which is 0 right now, and then the other heart is based on the mouse value. So if I kept that right heart out, then it would cycle through the entirety of the left heart first before changing the right heart. Here I wanted to change them both within the loop. So this is becoming a little bit complicated, but it's almost over, I promise. So HR equals X. I think that will work. So what I'm doing is I'm making this HR take on whatever this X value is. So that X value is gaining 1 every frame of this loop. So I think that my HR value here will go from 0 to 255. And let's see if that's true. Missing after for loop initializer. Oh, I think that for loops actually use semicolons in here rather than commas. It is not cycling. Left heart, HR equals 0. So I'm just going to print X here and see what it's telling me. So it is going 0 to 255.
There you
Well, it's the left heart that I'm looking for, which is curious. Oh, so it's
Do you have the left right in there?
yes, this should be the left heart. I deleted its thing. So anyway, that was an off-the-cuff sort of improv thing. I'm going to troubleshoot it while you guys are working on your own, and then I'll have it up and going. But that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to cycle the heart value. And I want you guys to go through your own program, see what you guys can replace with variables, and then, for example, in Karen's, she has multiple triangles. You can just create the multiple triangles there. I want everyone to have one element of interactivity, even if it's as simple as mouse X changes the color value. I just want you guys to play with it and see what's possible. So I will go around one by one after I finish debugging this and help everyone get there, and then we'll watch one more short video before the end of class. Yeah?
I actually have like one really specific thing about it. I'm trying to do it while I'm doing your listening to your lecture, but I just can't figure out how to. I'm
Yeah.
trying to do for this one specific thing. So I'm sorry.
That's just fine. Let me cancel